We are live, Your Worship.
Before we start, for those of you in the room, I have Councillor Cherry on the line as well. So we're all here. Good afternoon, Council. I would like to call this Budget Committee of the Whole meeting for November 6, 2025 to order with adoption of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Palmer, Councillor Orlando. All in favor? Motion's carried. We're going to move right on to staff reports. Committee of the Whole recommends to Council financial plans. Ms. Moore, do you have a brief oversight on this before we move?
Through the chair, I can walk you through the long-term financial plan document that you've received a paper copy in front of you, but I will also bring it up on the screen.
All right, thank you.
So this is the draft 15-year long-term financial plan for 2026 to 2024 or 2040. You'll see that it has a refreshed look to align it to some of our new branding guidelines. So we've done a complete overhaul of the document. Much of the content is similar to the Finance Committee. However, it provides more in-depth graphs and various other things in the document. And with that, I'll start walking you through on the screen, and you can follow along on the paper copies if you'd like as well. Okay, so this first screen here that I'll stop at, and I will zoom in because it looks like it's a bit small for you all. Is that visible? Okay, so this is the impact of property taxes on a single home based off of the current draft budget in front of you and from motions made from at the committee level. We've got a 3.75% tax increase, 4.75 and 5.75. The difference in these scenarios is related to transfers to the Arena Redevelopment Reserve. So to pay for the core of the increase in spending initiatives, it is minimum 3.75% is where we are sitting today. On the average value home, we are sitting at $860,000 for a single family home in Revelstoke. Last year's municipal property taxes were on average $2,265, and a 3.75% increase is equivalent to $85. This will total to $2,350 with scenario 1. Scenario 2 is $108 at 4.75% and a total of $2,373. And scenario 3 is 5.75% or $130 and a total of $2,395. In here, we've included the increase for utilities. So this includes garbage, water, Big Eddy, and sewer frontage. These average between low $10 to around $25 per impact. In terms of the total impact for the average value home, this is for user fees and municipal property taxes. I have not included taxes requisition from other taxing authorities. I've grappled over this for the last couple of years. However, it's been very volatile and variable about what their requisition increases have been, and I do not want to provide misleading content to the community based off of the total requisition from other governments.
Okay.
I have it broken down between the city and Big Eddy because they do have the different water system. The average increase with scenario 1 is 3.9%, including utilities, or $157 a year on the average value home. Scenario 2 is 4.5%, or $180 for the average value home. And scenario 3 is 5.1% total increase in billing to the city, or $202 a year. So as you can see, the average value home, depending on the scenario, their total bill to the city is going to range between $41,050 to close to $4,200 a year. And if at any point you have any questions, please just stop me. I'll keep going. On this page, we have the breakdown per $100,000 of assessed value for the business class versus residential class. So for those that don't fit into that average value, they could do a quick calculation based off of their current assessed value of what that would look like for total tax impact. We have the breakdown of different scenarios of where the tax increase is going. So for the core budget increase, that is 2.2%. Current recommended operating spending initiatives are 1.55%. That brings us to the base 3.75%. And anything in addition is related to transfers to reserves, increased transfers to reserves. Below here, we have a reference point for what 1% is equivalent to. So 1% increase in property taxes is equivalent to $174,000 in revenue for the city. The utilities vary with garbage rates at $5,400, water at $36,000, and sewer, and Big Eddy water at $2,300. Are there any questions before I keep going?
Questions, Council? Council Lucille?
Thank you, Rachel. This question's through to staff. I'm not sure if this is the right time to ask, but when we're talking about the taxes we collect, what percentage are we keeping as municipality versus what we're collecting for the school and the regional district and the library?
For the chair, we keep approximately of the total tax requisition around 70%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that would be something that should be communicated to the public, because I know when they're viewing how our taxes are going up, some people don't understand that we are collecting for other organizations through that.
Absolutely.
Council.
Thank you, Mayor. So it's just further to that on page 11, there's the report has a chart there showing the taxation. Just a comment, when I saw that, I like it. I like it a lot. The presentation is, in my mind, pretty clear. I'm wondering if that, just further to Councilor Lucio, if for this circle here, if it included that 65%. So that's another function, because you don't actually have the city portion in there. So I know it's tricky to get the right information, but that's, I guess, sort of similar to what you were asking. I was thinking, okay, it'd be nice to see that with the city part in there, then it sort of conveys that image, but for your consideration.
Absolutely. We can make some tweaks to the document before it goes out for public engagement, and that is something where I could add a second graph or just update this graph so that it's all taxes.
That would be great.
Okay.
Yeah. Councilor Stigers.
Yeah, thank you for the chair to Ms. Moore. When you reference transfers to reserves, we're specifically speaking to the transfers to the multiplex reserve. Is that correct, or are we referencing other reserves as well?
Through the chair, that is correct. Right now, it is geared towards increased transfers to the Arena Redevelopment Reserve. However, should council want to see that increase be communicated to be directed to a different reserve when we go out for public engagement, we can make changes that way.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
Councilor Paul.
Yeah, so we're having that sort of discussion right now. So again, I really like the presentation. It's clear. I do have I guess, a question. So on the scenarios, scenario 1, 2, and 3, so we had quite a bit of discussion at the finance committee about those. My recollection wasn't really a consensus, but it seemed that the middle row was targeted. And if that's the case, and maybe Councillor Cherry might want to pipe in on this, but that green arrow, the green line is suggesting that's what we're targeting. And if the intent of council is to be targeting the middle, then I'm wondering if that green should be shifted to the middle. And just for the conveying that information, obviously we're open to the public's input, but that sort of indicates to me that that's our intent, in the sense that I had is that we were still looking at the multiplex reserves as a priority. So, yeah.
Councilor Chair.
Hey, thanks, Mr. Sauls, and I guess Palmer for teeing me up here. I was actually going to suggest that we remove scenario 1 from the report in general and tee up either a 1% transfer or a 2% transfer to the multiplex redevelopment fund. But shifting that green, that little green arrow highlighted area seems like another option as well.
Okay, follow up. Councilor Palmer, comment?
I wouldn't want to remove that as an option because I'd like to hear the feedback from the community, but I would suggest that moving that green to the middle would be a good plan.
Ms. Moore.
Through the chair, I can absolutely move the green arrow. The conversation felt a bit ambiguous where we left off, so I just left it on the first one, but that was something that I was going to look for direction on today. So absolutely, we could move that green arrow to the center before we go for public engagement.
Councilor Stichler.
Yeah, I would just say, like, not necessarily the green arrow, but just more clarification as to, like, scenario 1 is just, core services with inflation, and then scenario 2 is the 1% for reserves, and then scenario 3 being the 2%, if I understand correctly. And then the other thing that I'm not sure how much of a conversation we're going to dive into regarding Arena, but I was speaking with a young lady from Kamloops the other day, and they're looking at an arena down there to the tune of roughly $80 million. And with a tax base of roughly 100,000, they still can't make it pencil. So with that being said, I'm not yes, we're saving for a reserve, but we're saving for something that we don't really have a plan for. And is it financially viable? I guess is the long run. So, or is it just kind of taxing the population right now for something that isn't really achievable?
Yeah, good comment. Ms. Moore, do you want to weigh in on that?
Through the chair, in terms of the way the document is set up, and when the budget guide goes out, it will be more consolidated. It'll be over as many pages. We've got the green arrow kind of follow through on each set of scenarios where it does break it out here. However, I could add additional descriptors of each scenario in the budget guide or in this document as well. In terms of the arena redevelopment, it's really dependent on what type of facility we build and what the comfortability is with the community in terms of tax rate increases. And unfortunately, we haven't surveyed that for them yet, and that will be in the new year. So it's a little hard to speak to the financial viability as it's still quite ambiguous.
So when this goes out to the community, if we move that scenario or the green arrow to scenario 2, which is kind of where we're looking at the midstream sort of thing. And then we talk about that it's going to be 1% is going to reserves for that. And then get the feedback from the community, how do they feel about that sort of thing? Because they might come back and say, what's it going to cost? And I think everybody's been asking that. Because there's no definitive. We know that we're possibly 50 to 80 million just to start. Where are we going to put it? What kind of facility? All those sorts of things come into play. But as Councillor Stevenhurst has indicated, are people going to be comfortable with any money going to reserves? That sort of thing. We'd like that feedback. Councillor Stevenhurst.
Just a question in regards to like the 1% and the 2%. What essentially does that equate to when we're looking at the end of the year? Like if we were to look at the broad picture over the course of a year, how much are we actually putting into reserves based on those 2 percentages?
So right now, the current transfer to the Arena Redevelopment Reserve is approximately $1,050,000 a year. Each, in addition, 1% increase will be another $174,000 in perpetuity each year. So, I already did quick math on the fly here.
It's also on page 14.
If we were to be recommending the scenario 2, it'd be $1,050,000 plus $174,000. That means each year, including 2026, we will transfer $1,224,000 to the Arena Redevelopment Reserve.
Okay. Comments from anyone? Councillor Palmer. Councillor Rowan.
Yeah, just a reminder, like we have this conversation every year. I think we've had it for 4 years, 5 years I've been on council. And we have it annually. Do we save for something we don't know what it is? And I think the question is really, do we envision having an arena in our community's future or not? I think that's a kind of a comment. Again, Councillor Cherry has mentioned that many times as far as, not having saved in the past. And even though we don't know what that's going to be in today, there has been a fair bit of community consultation already saying, yes, this is important. That's the message we've heard, including last year on the same kind of dialogue. Community saying there's a variety of opinions out there, obviously. There's a bell curve, if you wish, but in general, the community is saying on the arena, for sure, that we see that in the future, but also the multiplex, something that's as we mature as a community. So I think there is a plan, and again, we have a fairly extensive committee that is addressing that as well. Thanks.
Oh, thanks. From anyone else? Councillor Stevenhurst or Councillor Orlando, sorry, you had your hand up.
Thanks. Just on this specific topic, my feeling is it would be good to have an update sort of attached to this on sort of outlining those numbers, how much we've set aside, how much we're currently setting aside. I'm not speaking to the amount we're actually saving, but or setting aside, but what I am speaking to is just if somebody's approaching this document from the outside and doesn't have a lot of background, I think it would be good to put it there saying like, this is our total so far, this is how much we're saving each year, that kind of thing, because their interpretation might be that, that they just don't have that information on what it is. So that's my main thing, is just to maybe in the presentation package, just to explain where we're at right now in terms of saving.
Okay, good. That's doable.
That's doable.
Awesome. Good. Councillor Cherry?
I don't feel like repeating most of what Palmer said, so I'll just leave it at, whether we figure out what we want to do, whether it be a multiplex, arena, anything, this is a project that should have been, savings should have started happening about 30 or 40 years ago, not 3 years ago. So here we are trying to make up for lost time, as we talk about every year and has been indicated by the community. So as you guys know, I will continue to push this, even before we have a facility chosen.
Good, well, I appreciate that comment, because I think you've been pushing it back, since you were a child, trying to make this go forward, so. Anyway, Councillor Stapleton's comment.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to the arena, one of the things that I'd like to see is I'd like for us to explore other ways of generating revenues rather than just taxing the population. Some ideas that I've had is, adding a redevelopment or a rebuilding charge to the cost of tickets. You could look at $5, and when I was at the opening home game the other night, sold out arena, line wrapped around the block. So obviously, I think the demand that is there for an increase in tickets or an increase in price of tickets, I think would support the demand that we're currently seeing. I think also, trying to gather better data as to who's visiting the arena. Is it all locals? Is it tourism? Can we market this as a tourist venue for future use of various funds? And then also in regards to generating revenues, I was speaking earlier with the mayor prior to everybody else. An extra buck a ticket on a beer, right? Like if you're paying $8 or $9, does it really make a difference if you want a beer? But having that little bit of extra revenue going towards the arena, I think it'd be easier for the public to swallow it overall, knowing that they're not bearing the whole cost.
Thank you, Councillor Cherry.
Hey, since we're having this conversation, just a question through the chair to Ms. Moore. Is that something we're able to do within our community charter with our local government act?
Through the chair, I might pass this one to Ms. Donato as she's more familiar with the existing, or Mr. Parliament, existing relationship with the Grizzlies.
Sure, I'll take that, yeah. So, Mr. Mayor and Council, the Revelstoke Grizzlies set the price for their beer tickets, their sales. They set the price for tickets. The only influence the city would have is to charge the Grizzlies more for their lease and the use of the facility, which would encourage them to up their price, which would result in an increased revenue stream for the city. So it's a partnership between us and the Grizzlies, but we don't have any direct control on what they charge for their services, whether it's tickets or food and beverage. But we do have control on the lease.
Okay. All right. Councillor Cherry, follow up?
No follow-up.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Ms. Moore?
Keep going. Okay.
If I can, Mr. Mayor, next Wednesday, we will have our consultants do a presentation to council to update all of council on the work that both the committee has done and the consultants have done vis-a-vis the multi-purpose facility, at which time we will be talking more about what the next steps are after the survey results and the anticipated costs. And I will be sharing with council a few options to consider as we get closer and closer to determining size and scope of this facility.
All right, appreciate that.
Thanks.
Karen,
Okay.
thank you.
I'm on page 15 now, if you are following on a paper copy. Here we get into the various operating fund graphs. So here's a bar graph of what we just recently looked at in terms of the average value home and taxation increases, including historical tax increases, and the next 5 years. What I will bring you to is 23 and 24 was a 5% tax increase, 26, 6%. I currently have it at 3.75%. However, if we move the to scenario 2, that will be 4.75%. And then in 2027, it's 2.5% estimated tax increase for the base budget and 2% thereafter. Based off of current inflation rates, the annual inflationary budget has been decreased to 2%. I have not projected out increased transfers to reserves related to the arena, in the sense that it's still ambiguous of what type of facility or to what extent we're building a facility. And once we get a better understanding of that, we can build out the long-term financial plan to be for a more specific project.
Councilor Palmer?
Thank you, your Solicitor Director. On the garbage rates, I think this is a question I don't think we dove into too much. How much of that is the tipping fees, which is a regional function, but it's out of the garbage rates, I believe? Their fees have gone up fairly substantially. So I'm just trying to get a sense of what that impact on those increases. Because one of the criticisms is, okay, we've had a lot of pretty big increases. And what I'm looking at is, well, there's a whole bunch of factors, but one of those factors, I think, is our tipping fees. So do we have a sense of what that percentage off the top of your head, or that might be something that can get later, if not?
Through the chair, are you referencing the percentage of the refuse total budget or the percentage increases of rates?
Yeah, a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, so if the tipping fees were 50%, then it's pretty easy calculation, then half of the percentage increases from that. So, yeah, mostly the percentage that goes to tipping fees.
So the current total budget for refuse services is approximately $550,000. Right now, I'd say the three main components of that budget are tipping fees, internal equipment fees, so the trucks and fuel and insurance, and then wages. So I'd say those are the three big components of that budget. In 2025, we did a larger increase because CSRD gave notice that they were increasing their tipping fees. I believe it was around 12 to 15%. So that's what was the larger increase in 2025. For 2026 and 2027, this relates to the new composting program. So it will be more expensive to have a second truck, even though they're automated, have a second truck picking up compost and garbage.
So the point Marisol's making there is, in the past, that those tipping fees have been a substantial portion of our increases.
Yeah.
We've looked at that in the past. And moving forward, even though it's our composting program, again, that's directly related to tipping fees. Because that's reducing potentially some tipping fees, but it's still going towards the regional district, even though there's that extra cost. And
Well, they operate the compost facility. Right?
yeah, and also if we weren't doing that, we could for sure be seeing our tipping fees going up even further because of the requirements of that. So, and the point is, on that, there's big increases here. A lot of that is not directly in our control.
Yeah, good point. And it really is not in our control. A lot of it is provincial government's regulations, and saying on the CSRD board and seeing what it costs to close landfills and to bring them to end of life is millions of dollars. And looking at that, I'm like, wow, we're better off to keep them open and going on forever, so the thing that doesn't happen can't happen. So, okay. Any other questions regarding this slide? Seeing none, let's move on, please, Ms. Kim.
So here we have some more pie graphs. This is the total operating budget for the general fund. This does not include utilities. This year for 2026, it is set at 35.1 million, and it's just broken out by color based off of revenue stream and expenditure type.
Any comments, questions?
move on. So the next slide is the change. You're all probably recall some of this from the finance committee. I'll just zoom in so you can see it a little better.
Yeah, so if I may just go back to the pie charts.
Sure.
Was a fair bit of some change in council policy on administrative cost recoveries. So compared to the past, that administrative cost recoveries is 4.2% of the pie. Do you know offhand what that was in the past in a relative sense, or how much that? Because that was a cost that we weren't recovering all the time. We had some.
The revenue is within the finance department. It just needs somewhere to be coded. So it falls within our operating department, not that we take it all. So historically, the actual internal admin fees, this 1.4 million includes the motion from the finance committee. However, it can be changed based off of council's decision.
Okay.
So it has increased just shy of $200,000. And this is on page 35.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. To the core budget increase. We'll start with the revenue, and I'll just give a quick highlight. And if you have any questions, please stop me.
Sure.
A few notable pieces are the grant in lieu taxes. This is up higher than we anticipated, specifically due to the BC Hydro Guild grant in lieu. We have the budget set at 5% inflationary for service fees and permits. This is based off of council's recent motion. The total increased revenue from last year's budget to this year's budget is approximately 1.3 million, and it equates to a tax impact of negative 7.66%. As we go through the expenditures, the most notable increase is wages and benefits. The city's biggest operating expense is labor, so this is no surprise. We've got increased internal equipment fees. These are set at a higher inflationary rate at 5%, where other items in the budget are set at a 2% inflationary increase. We have a few other things like transit for an additional 2,000 hours and 175,000, and software support that has also increased significantly year over year. This means the total expenditure increases year over year is 1.6 million, or a tax impact of 9.44%. Moving to the bottom of the page, we've got estimated new construction revenue at 250,000. This is a consistent budget from previous years. We have historically, in the last 3 years, received more than 250,000 in new construction revenue or new development revenue. However, we are taking a bit of a conservative approach given the current economic climate. And then we have seen increased debt servicing. This is related to increases in interest rates and loans being refinanced with MFA, and then increased transfers to reserves for inflationary purposes. This is the total net changes to the core budget is 384,000, or equivalent to a 2.2% tax increase. And this is consistent with that average value home slide of without any new spending, the minimum tax increase is 2.2%.
That's just to keep the doors open.
Exactly, the lights on. As for the operating spending initiatives, these all remain the same from the finance committee. The total impact is 1.55% and 271,000. This also corresponds with that average home value slide. I have left the items in there that are to be deferred. However, they are not included in this total. That, I'll move on to the water utility operating fund. Okay, so moving on to utilities. At a higher level, we have the water utility rates. The last 3 years, they've increased at 5%. The plan going forward reflects a 4% increase. This is related to stronger, I guess you almost call it like new construction revenue in utilities, but new development paying fees, and a combination of that. And with the addition of the water meter implementation, we can extend the infrastructure replacements and some of the capital projects out longer with water meter implementation.
Good.
We've got the same pie graphs for the water utility fund. Most of the revenue comes from user fees, and approximately half of the expenditures, or just over half of the expenditures, are being transferred to the reserve. Moving on to the Big Eddy water operating fund. In 2023, we did do a larger increase as the reserve fund is quite low, and the rates were less than the rest of the water users within the city that are on the Greeley treatment plant. They now follow consistent rate increase as the other utilities, 5% and 4% going forward. In the Big Eddy pie graphs, we have, they look a little bit different. About 25% is transferred to reserves for future savings. And then about 1/3 is for debt servicing costs. This is related to the local area service agreement for the water treatment plant upgrades about 5 to 6 years ago. Okay, moving on to the sewer operating fund, we've got a larger increase in 2023 of 20% to help save for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade, which is finally on its way. And they now follow the similar rate fee increase as the water fund, 5% last 2 years and 4% going forward. Here we have the sewer fund. We have 2 different main revenue sources here. We've got user fees, and then we also have the frontage tax, which is a little bit more unique to the sewer fund versus water. And then for their transfers to reserves, they're close to 60% of the revenue is transferred to reserves. And the vehicle and equipment fund. This fund has been increasing year over year and quite significantly in the last 3 to 5 years due to the extraordinary inflationary costs. It's just over $3 million a year. We have $515,000 in cost recovery for the fire department, and $2.5 million in everything else, public works and other departments. And then I'll make note of the transfers to reserves. So we're saving just over $250,000 a year related to fire equipment, and $1.3 million related to all other vehicle and equipment. In order to balance this reserve fund and the long-term financial plan, we've had to put in that increased inflationary amount of 5% per year instead of the 2%.
Councilor Cherry, you have your hand up?
Yeah, if you don't mind, just a question through the chair to Director Moore. Can you explain the firefighter, just a quick reminder of the firefighter recoveries? Is that when the firefighters get chargebacks from the province or for items such as false alarms?
For the chair, so the fire recovery, and I'll just plug in actually, so you can see it.
Has it got anything to do with the rescue truck?
No, so this is what we call an internal charge.
Okay.
So essentially, the vehicle and equipment fund will charge the fire department for the use of equipment. It sounds a bit funny when I say it out loud because we don't actually physically charge ourselves. But essentially, in order to save each year and pay for ongoing operating and maintenance of the equipment, we need to allocate an amount in the budget. And typically you have all the equipment in one side and then all the operating funds in a different area. So you'll see when we get to the fire department, they have approximately a $500,000 ill match, $515,000 in expenditures for their operating budget.
Just because the trucks are red, right?
Exactly. It's expensive. So that's essentially what we're saying is each year we need $500,000 to pay for the ongoing operations of the fire equipment and saving for new fire equipment.
Does that answer your question, Councilor Chair?
Yes, in a very accountant way.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Let's move on, please.
Okay, now we're back to the detailed operating general plan. So there's a few items in here. There's the tax exemptions. So this is the estimated 2026 permissive tax exemptions that were recently adopted by council. We just like to highlight in the plan that this is equivalent to approximately $482,000 in taxation revenue. The grant and aids. We've got historical actuals. I do want to just make a couple notes about the 2026 budget. Right now, this is the base budget. So if there are any spending requests related to, for example, the golf course and museum, once those are approved, they would then be added to the base budget. However, right now they sit in the spending request category. And once that category is approved, then it goes into the base budget. And so in here, you'll also see a reduction in the Street Fest funding. We moved some funding around where, around eligibility of the Wooden Head Park washroom cleaning, where we're paying for more events now with RMI instead of taxation. So the Street Fest, and then in return, we're paying for the Wooden Head Park washroom cleaning with taxation. So that net effect. First up is the council operating plan. You will see the bar graphs from the last few years in the 2025 budget. The 2026 draft budget, you'll see the spike in the bar graph. This is related to the election. Otherwise, we see a steady increase up until 2030 again. Moving on to corporate services, human resources, and information technology. These are three separate departments, however, for demonstration purposes for the budget and how they're coded in our current account structure, they are put together. So these org charts are meant to represent our largest expense, which is labor, a visual of what that is in the budget. So based off of what's in each org chart is what is in each departmental base budget. So in here, you'll see the bar graphs. Zoom in a bit, they look a little small. Going forward, you see steady increases, the historical actuals. There is a bit of a shift in the bars, mostly related to the fact that GIS used to fall within engineering scope, and that was moved over to IT. And there's been a couple new positions over the last few years between payroll and the communications position. As for the finance department, you'll see a little bit of a larger increase for 2026 compared to 2025. Some of this is related to the software implementation and increased licensing fees. Aside from that, the general inflationary increase is set at 2%. We've got engineering and public works. So in this plan, I do note a couple different increases. So one of them is the vehicle and equipment annual inflationary increase is more than 2%. It's the 5%. So we're seeing some costs increase at a higher rate in this department. Plus, we're also seeing cost changes related to the refuse composting garbage program.
Right.
Development services. Historically, we've seen some different revenues and costs based off of their operations and new staff that have come on board over the last few years. However, they do have a general inflationary increase of 2% per year and a 3% increase in, or 6%, that might need to be updated. But they fall into the 5% increase in permit and service fees for 2025, and I believe everything in the plan is 3% thereafter. Bylaw and compliance. We forecast ongoing steady ticketing and license revenue. We have increased the staffing in 2024. And in 2025, we have reallocated a portion of the manager's wage from development services to bylaw, about 30% for Mr. Gips. And in 2024 specifically, I believe there was increased legal fees, which also resulted in increased revenue.
Yeah, just through the chair, just looking at the 2024 actual for revenue under bylaw compliance, seeking a further explanation on whether I mean, that percentage is really high. It's good to see whether we would forecast that trend to continue or not, and why. Yeah.
Through the chair, they had a couple complex files that they resolved that year.
Okay.
That resulted in increased revenue, so not necessarily increased ticketing.
Mhm.
It was some of those longer range, more complex files where property owners were not in compliance within the community.
Mhm.
I don't want to say too much in a
Sure.
public meeting, but
Yeah.
that's essentially what it was.
Okay. Thank you. Great.
Okay. Moving on to community economic development. The big change that's still in this bar graph is in 2023 was the expansion of the MRDT. and the increase from the 2% to the 3%. That happened in May of 2023. So you'll see 2023 and 2024, 2025 increases in revenue that way. We have added a provision for the use of OAP funds each year in relation to what the city has committed to.
Councilor Lucille.
Thank you, Principal. Question through staff. Usually the food security coordinator contract sits under CED, and I was just wondering if that is still there and if there's still funding for it, as well as if the Indigenous liaison contract position has funding and will be hired for 2026.
Through the chair, the base funding for the Economic Development Department remains similar to last year. So I anticipate a similar amount for the food security and for the Indigenous liaison position. I'm not sure if Mr. Parliament wants to speak to whether or not they'll be billed. Not yet. Okay.
Not yet, they won't be filled, and not yet, you don't want to speak to it. Or
Not both. Carry on, please.
Parks, Recreation and Culture 5-year plan. What I will highlight in this one is that the base budget includes operating the aquatic center and fitness center 7 days per week during peak season. So that is in there. I believe that's November to March or October to March, somewhere around there. Moving on to the fire rescue services, you'll see that the bar graphs are increasing each year historically, and then just general inflationary going forward. This draft budget does not include the staff request that's in the operating spending package. So once the operating spending package is approved, that's when it gets put into the base budget. So the increases for the last few years, this relates to new staff members or the increased vehicle and equipment charges that I was just referencing before. So those have increased between 2022 and 2025, 95%. I think they used to only be around 200,000-ish. And it just was not enough to save and maintain and operate the existing fleet. And so in this 2.5 million approximate, I guess we're getting close to 3 million here in 2026, approximately $500,000 of that is related to vehicle and equipment costs that the taxpayer is paying for.
Sure. Councilor Stiglers.
Looking forward to 2027, 28 and beyond, is that reflective of the cost that's going to be associated with the second station and apparatus needed?
Through the chair, we have addressed one of the larger pieces of apparatus that are needed through the existing long-term financial plan. We have not addressed the plan for the second fire hall. You'll see it when we get to the unfunded list, it's listed there. Chief DeRossi does have a spending package to get Class D estimates for a second fire hall, which will help us with the long-term planning and phasing that into the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to the RCMP. We've seen some variables over the last few years. A lot of it is related to vacancy rates, which we don't have any control over. We have seen this expense line item increase more than inflationary related to their successful collective bargaining. And so Going forward, we've reduced the vacancy rate that we predict to 2 to 2.5, or it used to be more around 3. And so we have seen an above inflationary cost on this specific budget line item. So, yeah. Some questions?
Nope, carry on.
Okay, moving on to fiscal services. So this is our revenue outside of the departmental revenue. So most of this is tax revenue, grant in lieu revenue, and various other things that don't find themselves a home within a department. And then the total expenditures relate to debt servicing and to transfers to reserves. You'll see in 2023, we've got a spike. This is related to the Growing Communities Fund, received of 3.3 million. Okay, with that, we're moving on to the capital plans. Small, I'm not sure if anyone is interested in discussing these again. These are the key general capital projects for the long-term financial plan. This is the same list that came forward at the Finance Committee.
Correct.
Moving on, we're on to page 54. This is the current unfunded list. What I have updated is putting in a dollar figure for the operating component of the second fire hall. And then this 15 million is a very broad estimate of what the second fire hall would cost, and that is what that Class D estimate would help us pinpoint a little further.
Councilor Leonard.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair, it's maybe not so much a budget question, it might be a bit more operational, but on the previous key general capital and major projects planned list, page 53, regarding the arena replacement projects, condenser, rink slab, HVAC, curling rink roof. A question is there likely to be any variability on the need to do those based on the outcome of our ongoing arena committee and consultation work, or are we locked into these given the timeline of like 2028 to 2030?
Ms. Donato, do you have any information?
Yes, Your Worship, I can just advise that we're reviewing on an annual basis to ensure that those components are still functioning the way they should. So for now, we've included them in the budget, and each year we reassess and revisit to determine whether or not we have to move forward with the project or.
Thank you.
All right. Carry on this one, please.
We have the capital project rating summaries. These are the new initiatives that have come forward this year. We have highlighted the ones that are deferred in here, as they will not be proceeding based off of staff recommendation. Otherwise, everything is in here from a rating perspective.
Councilor Stigners.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding correctly, it looks like the Mackenzie Avenue intersection improvement isn't being funded because it's highlighted, is that correct?
That is, so the highlight is every second row. Anything with the deferred. This comment here
Okay.
are the ones that staff have recommended to be deferred.
Okay.
The Mackenzie Ave is recommended to be funded through transportation infrastructure and roads DCCs.
Okay, sorry, I thought you said that the items that were highlighted were, yeah, thank you for that explanation.
Moving on to the water utility capital plan, the biggest change is the water metering implementation. We've added this large project to the plan. With the Big Eddy water utility capital plan, right now, we still only have the one project in here. Engineering staff are planning on doing a more robust capital planning project this winter for the next year's plan, as there are many pipes in the Big Eddy that haven't been replaced in several years, and the local area service agreement and upgrades before were only related to the treatment plant.
Right.
Not the pipes in the ground.
So, excuse me, just with those pipes, replace and upgrade. So some of those wells, pardon me, some of those pipes, Mr. Black, can we do like we've done with the other ones where we send that stuff down the middle of the pipe and possibly fix it that way? Or is it something where we have to dig them all?
Your worship, the pipes that are in the eddy that are in need of replacement are generally substandard size,
Okay.
which would dictate replacement.
All right. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Okay, Ms. Moore, carry on. Thank you.
For the sewer capital plan, the most notable project on there is the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. This has been adjusted based off of the current construction schedule and estimates. So you will see a larger amount in 2026. The debt financing that goes along with this project will come into place in 2026 as well. So you'll see the temporary reporting bylaw come live in the coming months. Okay. We've got some graphs here on the vehicle and equipment plan. The green bars are related to fire equipment replacements, and the gold is for everything else. Okay, moving on to reserves and surpluses. On page 61, I know this is probably a lot of numbers in front of you. I just want to note that this table reflects the current rate increase and also how much is being transferred to reserves for savings. So just trying to tie those two together, that the more we increase fees or taxes, the more that we are saving for transfers to reserves and future capital. And here we have bar graphs for projected reserves. By 2030, we get close to the 50 million mark. This does include that 1,050,000 for the arena redevelopment reserve. Moving on to debt. For the city's total debt, we do see an increase in 2026 related to the wastewater treatment plant. Right now, we're forecasting 4.2 million in debt. The current borrowing bylaw is up to 7 million. So you'll see the debt servicing, the total debt increases in 2026 and slowly falls off into the 2040s. Most of this will relate to sewer as we continue on or until other debt is taken in. And for the debt servicing, you see the spike in 2027. So if we take on the debt at the end of 2026, our payments go up in 2027. So the total principal and interest that we're paying. Okay. Now we're on to the appendices. The appendices include a lot of the details that you've already seen, so I won't go through all of them. If anyone is interested, I will not go through this with you in detail right now because there are a lot of numbers on the screen. However, for each operating fund, if you do want to dive into the details, we try and break it out based off of actual and the next 15 years, some historical actuals, the next 15 years based off of category. So if any of you feel like looking at this outside of this meeting, that's what these appendices are for. And we've got it for each fund, so general, water, sewer, and vehicle and equipment. We also have a 15-year detailed reserve balances. So again, I won't get into the very specifics of this. This is a lot of numbers on the screen in front of you right now. However, if you do need to reference or you're interested on a specific reserve and where it's at within the current plan, that's where you can find it in the appendix. We're almost done, I promise. Finally, how we compare graphs. I do always find these a little interesting myself. Our comparator municipalities are Castlegar, Fernie, Golden, Kimberley, Nelson, Salmon Arm, and Tofino. The dark blue is Revelstoke. And so we've got some graphs on how we compare based off of the provincial statistics. I like to make reference to total user fees and parcel taxes on a representative home. So this would be frontage tax and utility fees. Revelstoke, in comparison to these other communities, are on the higher end. It's likely related to recent increases in sewer fees, specifically in the last 5 years, to pay for the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. The average municipal taxes on a representative home, Revelstoke is approximately mid to low with the comparator communities. What I will emphasize is that this is municipal taxes only, and so some municipalities and regional districts are set up a bit differently, where some regional districts provide more services than others, and some municipalities provide more services than regional. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at this. So I always find this graph, the total taxes and charges, all authorities, all user fees, how much is the average house paying to the municipality each year. I find this graph helpful. And on average, most communities are in the mid to high 5,000s, but you do see some still in the 4,000.
Just a question on that. So specifically, so on that chart, so you use user fees and parcel taxes. Does this include regional district taxes or not? The one that you're in the wrong spot.
The very last one.
So you were explaining that that's all taxing authorities, so school district and regional district. Okay, thank you.
They have almost $500 a year, but we can just have it noted.
And that takes us to the end of the document.
Great. So now that we've gone through that document, I'll ask time if there's any other questions, and then we can put some of the motions on the table. That's fine.
Just a series of questions, comments.
Sure.
So I love the aesthetics of the report. I think it's nicely done. It's a refresh, and I like it. Pleasing. However, on page 20, just represented. So I'm going to be talking about the blue and the green, and this might be in the communications department. I'm not sure how this is being done, but essentially, if you go to on the paper version, on the screen, the difference between the green and the blue is not bad, but it's still pretty close. On my computer, it's getting hard to discern. And then on the paper version, it's impossible to discern. And so I don't know how big of a challenge it is, but that's maybe something for staff to just take a look at, whether it's huge or not wrecking the nice aesthetics, but so that's just a general. Page 28, let me continue there, source.
Yep, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, page 28, a comment, I could have maybe done these alone. So departmental services and financial plans, you have council's role in financial plan, and you have the CAO. In my mind, the chief financial officer should be in there because it's a major role as well. In fact, to me, it precedes the CAO in my mind, so because it's a statutory. It's being a statutory, so that's just sort of a comment. I think that's important for the community and for us to understand. Then on it, so a lot of this isn't sort of financial stuff, it's more presentation. So the different departments, and there was some comment already. So I like the layout. So if I'll use the finance department, so it's clear who the director is with that bold red. The blues and greens again become impossible to discern if they're there. I'm not sure if they are or not.
I think they're all.
They're all blue. So I like that. And just for on the consistency, though, there's some interesting items. And it's just for more comment, I guess, looking at. So on page 32, so we have corporate services and a bunch of stuff. So that's not consistent with some of the other departments. And I'm not suggesting it needs a fix, but at the same time, it's a little bit inconsistent. So again, on the page 32, you have the director there, red, but then a bunch of other sort of peripheral things. And I think this is more presentation, it's not so much finance. And then there was a question on economic development, which is on page.
It's 41.
41? Yeah, so the difference there is a slight difference in functioning. Of my understanding, the CAO is the functional director as opposed to manager. And I'm wondering if that would actually be in the red. Again, this is sort of layout, and I compare that back to the other one. So it's just on the consistency, something to take a look at.
Do you mind if I provide a bit of clarification on the graphs?
Yeah.
Before you keep going, that might help.
I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So we grapple with how to present what fits into each department, operating budget. And for the most part, the biggest expense is labor.
Yeah.
So the way that we have it set up is with these smaller org charts in each department. And so the reason why you will see multiple of them say, okay, Paul Simon, he reports to the CAO. And this one, it's Kat Moffat, she reports to the CAO, is because the CAO's budget is not in community, his wages are not in community development. So that is part of like why they're presented the way they are. I see how there always feels like there's some level of disconnect because it's not a proper full integrative org chart for people to look at. And how we give a visual display of what's in each operating department has been a bit of a struggle or like some debate over the last few years, even internally at the management table. Like, how do we present this in the best way possible? And that's something that we grapple with. As far as corporate services, CAO, that larger kind of conglomerate. That one, we do have account structure limitation on, where we have to go and pull a bunch of financial data out of account structures because it's all lumped into one. Finance and GIS they're already in their own account structure, so I am considering moving those out next year to try and make it a bit more straightforward. But I basically kind of said to staff that I'm not changing the account structure during implementing the software implementation, so that's just to give you some context of kind of the intent of the org charts. I know that they're not perfect.
Good. Yes, so Mayor Souls, that's good. And really I was talking about some of the organizational things and understanding this is a financial document, but this is kind of also at the same time a major document going to the public. And for sure, based on my experience, you'll never get it quite right. But there was some conveyance of information on there. I'll leave that at this point, I think. If I may continue, Mayor Souls.
Sure, yes.
Just quickly check. Yeah. I had one other one, but I'll leave that one for now. Page 53. And it's sort of a general question to bring up. Well, no, actually it's not. Page 53 on the capital, major capital. The one that I'm been caught off guard each year is on the pavement management program. So it's a $1.6 million program. It's a big program. We do a lot of work. And the council basically made a decision without information this year. And so it's just something I'd like to see that breakdown because it is it's one of the largest portion in there and understanding how we're going ahead. Page 56. Water meeting, this is the annual question. So through the chair, through finance, or perhaps the director of engineering, water metering, so we have $5 million in 2026. Do we actually expect to spend $5 million on water metering in 2026?
Through your worship, that's the plan.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I hope so.
And that's the right answer. That's good. And page 65. Yeah, the debt. Actually, that goes further on. I can't remember which page it is. On the debt, our debt financing compared to the other communities is high. And I'm just making note of that, Mayor Souls, I guess, in our council, that compared to the other communities, we have a very high debt servicing component, like it's really high. And yet there's been this program of increasing reserves and increasing taxes, and still we're seeing this really high debt load. And so that is a concern to me. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Any other comments, questions? Councilor Lucid.
Thanks, Marcels. Yeah, I just want to echo what Councilor Glover said, that this report is really well written and consumable. One thing I did bring up, or I want to bring up, is on the pie charts on 20, 22, 24, and 26, is that each one, the color representing transfer reserves, user fees, shifts and changes with each page. And I don't know if, I'm sure that's just how it's programmed, that the largest percentage gets blue and then the second one gets green and yellow. But maybe just for continuity throughout the document in those ones, it might be good to have the same color for each thing.
All right. Any other questions? Councilor Long? No. So go ahead.
Maybe just a general question again. I like the layout. I'm just curious, is this all been done in the finance department, or is this using the communications, or sort of a general team thing? Yeah,
Through the chair, I use a consultant that's based out of Vancouver Island.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, great, thank you.
All right, Councilor Orlando.
Yeah, just a question through the chair, on page 54, the unfunded capital project list. I just want to flag two related things. One is RCEC. The second is the boiler system for the aquatic center, which is intended to be a backup for when we have issues with RCEC. Do we have any more? I guess my thought is this. A lot of the projects on the list are like future things that haven't started, but RCEC is an ongoing concern. I don't believe it's operating right now other than the propane backup system and whatnot. So in my mind, that brings a little bit more urgency on that file. And then related to the aquatic center, we've had complaints about the temperature going too low when we've had issues. And so the idea is to put a backup in there. My question is, are we able to, if it's operating properly under propane, are we able to keep that, to put off that boiler system for the aquatic and community center? I'm just wondering, I guess my thought is, just since they're incurring losses, as I understand it, to move up our CEC and get our options on the table. And then the second question is, do we need this boiler now? Are we going to run into troubles again with complaints and issues not being able to be open, for example?
So, Mr. Nano, can I go to you first, or Mr. Black? Mr. Nano, you're there every day.
Yeah, no, I can definitely speak to the usage and what happens when the plant goes down. Typically, the water temperatures throughout the day drop considerably, and if it reaches a certain threshold, we do have to close the facility because we're not meeting the temperature requirements for the pool. And that does happen when the plant goes down. We lose temperature in the showers, so people are having cold showers as well. But it's mainly the pool temperature drops so significantly that we can't have people in the pool.
How long does it take to come back up? Is it gonna take you a day or two to get it
It
back up?
does take a day depending on how long the plant is down for to reach that threshold that we should be at. If the plant is down for a few hours or half a day, there still is a drop in temperature and people do notice it, but it's not significant.
Right.
Where lap swimmers will still continue to swim. It's just not as an enjoyable experience. But if the plant is down for a full day, it could be a 2-day loss.
Sure. Mr. Parliament.
I'm not being a technical guy, but I'm gonna take a stab at this because Steve will correct me. Right now, we're talking about when the plant is down, we're talking about the boiler. We're running on propane, so we don't have a heat boiler right now. We're not producing steam nor heat. We're producing propane, and we're heating all our facilities by propane, and we have been for over a year now. So the short answer is, as long as we run propane and there's not a problem with the backup propane boiler, we're fine. We shouldn't have issues like we did before when we were relying on heat and wood waste, where we had to put in some redundancy, which is what you see in the unfunded capital of getting a second boiler. Because historically, when the plant went down, the boiler went down, the pool was compromised. But right now, with us running on our backup propane boiler, we've cut the expenses of our CEC, but we still await either A, a partner, or B, a grant to replace our aging boiler. Anything to add, Steve?
No, I think you got it covered, and I believe that, as we're not using the wood waste, right now, we've been very consistent operating. So we haven't seen much fluctuation or time down. Today is an exception. We've got some pipes that have a leak that we're replacing today, but generally speaking, we're keeping the system up and running.
Councillor,
Maybe just to follow up to Councilor Orlando's questions regarding the pool closure due to temperatures. How often is that occurring? Because I haven't really been hearing much of that, and then hearing the explanations from Director Black and Mr. Parliament doesn't sound like it's currently an issue. So I'm just wondering, when was the last time we experienced such a closure, and how often were we seeing it?
Your worship, I can't speak to how often we would be seeing it. Historically, we have closed, typically it's in the winter time, like January. I can't remember the last time, probably last year, at some point we did close for a bit. And we usually do social media posts when that happens, but it's not a regular occurring event.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Appreciate that.
It does happen periodically.
Okay, thank you.
any follow-up questions, Councillor Lucas?
Thank you, Marshall. With the window of 600,000 to $1.5 million for the boiler system, is that just for boilers, and or does that include a renovation for them to fit into the aquatic center?
Mr. Dunn?
I will defer that to you.
Mr. Black?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to provide that guidance at this point, not knowing the size of the boiler, what the availability of spaces. Can certainly get back to you with the answer at the next council meeting, if that's appropriate, or we can respond directly to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I've heard through the rumor mill that there's really space for boilers in the rec center, and that was a concern. So I just wanted some clarification on that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And then when we think about boilers, there's two ways to go, and part of that's going to be depending on what our CEC ends up, what we end up doing if there's partnerships and rebuilding our propane boilers down there, however we work at it. But it's like, do we put in a boiler in the community center that's redundant, where it can fire back up to make sure that we keep our heat system working? Or do we just go ahead and put something in the community center that will just the community center?
Yeah.
All of that is dependent upon costs and dependent upon space, but then it'll also be dependent upon what we do with our CEC.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Parliament.
Just quickly, an update on the boiler. We've asked Think Machines, based out of Enderby, that have pitched a proposal to us to get us a quote for a used boiler, if you will, not a second boiler, but a used boiler, heat only. They've been unable to nail down that price because the one they were looking at has been sold. But they're trying to get one in the ballpark between $600,000 and $800,000. This would be used, and that would be subject to available grants to fund it. So we wait to hear from Think. Just an FYI, thank you.
Good. All right, Ms. Moore. So before we go on to fees and charges, would you like us to put this motion on the table here so that you can go out to the public?
Through the chair. Yes,
Councilor
please.
Chair, did you have a question?
Nope. Okay.
Okay.
The three motions in front of you are similar to previous years. This is the committee recommending to council. So should you like to amend these motions afterwards, you can on next Wednesday. The public engagement session is scheduled for Thursday, November 27th, so the last Thursday in the month of November. This is consistent with the last 2 years. We haven't determined the time frame. However, I anticipate it being a similar format as last year, with a lunch and a late afternoon evening session.
Okay. And then, so once this goes through the public, we can take their feedback and amend as we need and make some suggestions. All right, Councilor Plum.
I'll put the motion on the table, 1, and I'll do an and for 2.
Okay. Seconder for the motion, Councilor Devlin. Any further discussion on the motion?
So again, so this is getting the financial plans out to the public for feedback.
Right.
And based on the 3.75, 4.75, and 5.75, however, it is not fixed, and we still have, council still has time for adjustments according to the feedback that comes back. And so we've gone through, several finance committee meetings. And this kind of represents where overall we've landed on. Not that we're all necessarily in agreement, but that it's kind of where we've landed on. And so it is time to get this moving out to the public. And Mayor Souls, I'd just like to compliment staff again for getting this done very early. We're well in advance of most communities. Most communities aren't getting this done until the new year, and then it really gets difficult. So I just applaud the work staff has done to get this before us at this time.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. And hearing that, we will have the chance to amend, and then even after we hear from the committee as to how much we put aside for the multiplex. All right, any further questions? Councillor Chair.
Yeah, I just want to ensure that the changes we discussed will be presented as well. Again, moving that green line over everything and that we talked about in the document.
Yeah, Ms. Moore states in the positive that will be done.
Thanks.
All right. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Item number 3. We'll put that on the table, Councillor Plummer.
Sure, I'll put it on that the public engagement session be scheduled at the Revelstoke Community Center on Thursday, November 27th, 2025.
Second for the motion, please, Councillor Lusau. Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor
Yeah.
Palmer, then Councillor Honor.
Yeah, so just speaking to the motion, that's good. And it looks like we're kind of geared up, or staff's geared up for this. And I just wasn't sure if there was any comments on the timelines. It's good right now. But we won't be putting this forward formally until next week. And I'm just sort of wondering about advertising. Will staff be putting out advertising? And I'm hoping including in the paper, as well as on our email list and all those kind of things. So just will we be going ahead with that based on this motion recommendation going forward so that there's enough advertising time?
Yep. Go ahead, Ms. Moore.
Through the chair, we'll start preparing all of our advertisements and content for November 27th based off of this motion. However, we won't hit the publish button until council gives us the green light.
Okay.
Councillor Chair.
I'm wondering if there's any other potential dates. I just want to note that the Public Infrastructure Committee meets that day. Same with RCFC. It's going to take a number of us away from this event.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Cherry. And I may not be here that day. I have a family member that will be having some medical stuff done. So we'll leave it at that, Councillor.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the timeline. So this recommendation going forward to council on the 12th.
Correct.
Will we be able to advertise that on the 13th and the 20th, or are we fixed on this date, I guess? I'm just concerned about timelines, and we don't want to go necessarily into December. The timing is good in some ways, but I'm just wondering about the actual date.
Thank you. So if council makes a motion on the 12th, we will not be able to get it into the 13th. However, the new public notice bylaw, we could just put it in the following week and it would be sufficient, and we would push it out in other avenues as well.
Then further to Councillor Cherry, how are we on that date?
On the 27th, how does that work for everyone else? Ms. Moore, go ahead.
Through the chair, I believe the RCFC board meeting is in the afternoon where the budget engagement would be for about an hour at lunch and then again late afternoon, early evening. I will make note that the rooms book up very quickly at the recreation center. So I do have the McPherson room booked for the 27th. We might have to rearrange location should we choose a different day.
Okay. And, that's going out to the public on that day. That doesn't mean that all of us need to be present for that. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the budget engagement window will be open for multiple weeks. So should they want to email in, fill out a survey online, want to talk Revelstoke. Once council gives us the green light on the 12th, usually there's a little bit of tweaking of content and we try and get it out to the public on Friday, the 14th, or at the very latest on the 17th, just through all of the other online and easier platforms to publish versus newspaper.
Councilor Palmer?
So Mayor Souls, you said you are occupied on the 27th as well?
I will be away.
You will be away. And I would like to be in attendance in person, but I will be away, but there will be opportunity to be watching online. Is that correct?
No.
No?
Will be a open house format similar to the last 2 years.
And Mayor Souls,
Go ahead.
so will people have an opportunity to engage remotely, or will they have to be there in person?
Through the chair, they will have an opportunity to engage remotely, so they will be able to comment on Talk Revelstoke. They can email in. I plan to do another survey this year, and all of that information will be compiled for council on the meeting on December 9th.
Okay, so are we still good to go ahead on the 27th? Did I get a second for that? Yeah, okay, thank you.
So, Mayor, I just trying to make sure that we're doing a good public engagement. I think
Yeah.
that's fine. At the same time, if for some reason we feel it's inadequate, we'll have that opportunity to address that later. That would probably make it spill over into January if that happened. I'm not saying it would, but yeah, okay.
All right, I'm going to call a question on the date of the 27th. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. All right, thank you. Moving on to fees and charges amendments. Pretty clear in the stuff that you've given us, Ms. Moore. We have gone over that before. Any oversight that you want to provide at this point?
Through the chair, I will make one comment here. The business license schedule, due to our software implementation starting next week, we have rolled those forward this week with the 5% increase based off of council's motion. However, it's my understanding there are some specific fees within other schedules that the committee would like to discuss further. So that is why it is before you today.
Okay. So we can address those as we move forward. This is scheduled to go into effect, is it January 1? So we can have an amendment to bring it up if we need in the next couple of weeks or not.
Through the chair, staff require direction on specific fees that council or the committee wishes to see changed relatively soon here. We can do first 3 readings at the end of November of the bylaw and then adoption the first meeting in December, which will allow us to hit the January 1st effective date.
Okay.
Otherwise, it will delay the effective date.
Okay, so I only want to make one comment on the cemetery fees.
Okay.
I would like to see our winter fee $500 across the board.
Okay.
It's a 400 something now. We never get our money back for any of that, but I still think that's a fair fee. And in the past few years, most of our full body burials have been in the winter time. And there's been an extensive amount of work gone into that. So I would like to see if you could boost that up to $500. And then we go from there.
Did you want to put a motion on the table?
Sure. I will, I'm just gonna go back and bear with me as I just find
I think I've got it here. Screen here.
page 2 of that.
So the winter fees that you're referencing, I'm assuming you're this number 3. Right now they're at 415 at 3% and 423 at 5%.
So for the adult burial, do we have, I don't know why I can't find, oh, there we are, okay. At 415, if we can raise that one to $500. And in fact, you know what, we gotta remove the snow no matter what the type of disposition is. The roads don't get any smaller, even if it's an urn, we still have to remove that, so I would like to make a motion that we amend that to $500 for her.
Okay.
Right. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councilor Staples, any further discussion on the motion? I'm bringing it forward because like I previously mentioned, most of those burials are during that time. And if it takes the guys 2 days to remove snow, we're not getting our $500 worth or $400 worth. So go ahead, Councilor Palmer.
Sorry, I had to go briefly there. Which line item we're looking at?
It's the winter fee for, it's item number 3 under cemetery services.
Oh, okay.
And it just goes from December 1 to February 28. Those dates seem to be good. Every once in a while, we do have something in March that is winter fee applicable. But other than that, I think that's appropriate. I just thought that fee would be just a little bit more. It's not much. It's only $85 more, but it's standard across the board. Any other comments on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. All right. Any other charges that anyone is concerned about with fees and charges? Councilor Cherry and then Councilor Scriven.
Thanks. I was hoping to talk about ice rental fees, some of the arena fees. Don't see a page number to help guide you guys there. Sorry. But it's in the Parks and Rec.
And
Well,
Page 10.
perfect. This is something that's come to my attention. I do play men's hockey. I do play old timers hockey, and I know there's been some conversations I'd like to bring to the council table. Currently in Revelstoke, how it works is it doesn't matter what hour, well, aside from before, after working hours, it doesn't matter. We charge by user group, not by what's known as prime time hours for ice. So the men's adult hockey, both old timers and not, kind of get these scraps of ice times that are left, but are the ones paying full price and subsidizing all other user groups. That includes figure skating, minor hockey tournaments, youth out of town, junior hockey, both practices and games, which both user groups have no issue with. What they don't understand is why women's adult hockey is charged a significantly lesser rate. And this is the only time in all of the arena fees where prices are segregated between men and women. Everything else is by age. I'm not going to be advocating for men's hockey to be decreased in prices, but I would be advocating for women's adult hockey to be both increased as well as some of the junior hockey hours. Just hoping to have a conversation before putting a motion on, but
I'm going to go to Ms. Donato and ask a couple questions, Councilor Cherry. And
perfect.
So, Ms. Donato, comment on that. Is there a reason the way it stands right now for less for the women than for the old farts?
Your Worship, Councillor Cherry, typically, when we have ice user groups that are starting up or struggling to maintain numbers, it's quite common that you will see a lower user fee for them.
Okay.
Just to help them sustain their program. In our particular case, historically, women's hockey has always been set at a lower user fee, substantially lower than the men's hockey. But their membership numbers in the past have been 10 to 20 people, where we have men's hockey that has 250, 400 players in their whole program. So the registration cost to play in those leagues is significantly lower and can help cover the higher ice costs. So you'll find that quite common. In our case as well, the Women's Adult Hockey League has one dedicated ice slot compared to the men's that have 3 dedicated ice slots. And typically they're shuffled around to pick up ice time when someone cancels an ice time or the Grizzlies don't play on a weekend. They'll take the ice time that no one else wants.
Okay.
So it's a challenge balancing that out, but I think we are increasing these fees. We're playing catch up. It is a hard sell to increase an ice user's fee by $70 an hour at one shot.
Sure.
So I think little by little, we'll get these ice fees higher up. And at the same time, this particular program is growing. So we should see more enrollment in it. And we can just review on an annual basis.
Good. So, Councillor Cherry, I'll go back to you for comment after hearing what Mr. Neto said.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. Currently, I'm going to break them up into old timers and men's league. Men's league right now has 110 users. We got an ice time Tuesday, Thursday, and 2 on Sunday. Again, aside from the 1 early Sunday ice, I believe everything else is after 9 o'clock. Old timers takes a Monday, Friday when available. They have a maximum amount of people allowed on the ice of 27. Where their usual numbers are sitting closer to, could be anywhere between 18 and 22. I just wanted to bring those in to compare, whereas women's hockey, they're up to 4 teams right now. They're sitting probably around, I believe, 80 to 90 players. The system has worked well. They've got great ice times. It's growing. But I think we should be increasing that rate at a higher percentage to catch them up now that it's being proven out as successful.
So do you, what do you think, Ms. Donato, what do you think would be tolerable at a higher rate of increase so that we don't lose those people from coming out to play that game?
I'm just bringing up the ice schedule here. So in terms of their ice time, it's 9:15 to 10:30. It's consistent with the same ice time that rec hockey gets. We can't have rec hockey on the ice any earlier than that because we have youth groups utilizing the ice on the clock.
Yeah.
I can't speak to the numbers that the Kodiaks have. I would have to come back to see what they can sustain. But we could probably bump it up if need be.
So if we went up to, it's 116 now, if we went up to 120 or 125, Councillor Cherry, could you live with that so that we're not raising it so high that it makes it unaffordable?
I just want to clarify, it's not me, and Evan here can attest to it too. These are the conversations that we're getting every week via the other user groups. But yeah, that's again, I'm just trying to keep it as fair as possible. Yeah, that seems fine to me.
Good. Councillor Palmer, you're going to.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So fair enough, the discussion, if it goes on a motion, I won't oppose it or anything. I'm just a little bit concerned that we're looking at specific ice time fees. And if we're gonna do this on every line item, agree. So I think it would be better just to let staff, sort of hear, they've heard the concerns and then come back with recommendations in the future. We're looking at a more global increase across the board there. I would suggest that if we make sort of ad hoc adjustments.
Good point. I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna leave that and staff have heard us. They can look at things and see what's best. Councilor Stickners, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did, not related to, ice times or fees, but related to parks and recs. What I wanted to quickly discuss was, the consideration of a second set of, the second set of rate fees for visitors, that are using the pool and the aquatic center. What I'm looking at or proposing is a rate fee for visitors using our pool that would be 5 to 10% higher than what's being proposed, and what's proposed for the locals. I'm in favor of. What I would be, and the reason why I think this would be a good idea going forward is it would allow us to collect the data as to who's using the aquatic center. And then moving forward, it would give us better data as to the user groups, whether it's visitors, whether it's locals, and how we can best future fund such activities as we've seen previously discussed today, such as the boiler replacement system.
Okay, so I'll go to Mr. Nato in a moment, but I know we have the system where the hotels buy passes and whatnot, and a lot of our guests are coming from those hotel passes. No, they're not, Mr. Nato, so clarify for me then.
Yes, we no longer have the hotel motel
Okay.
corporate pass. We do have some hotels that may purchase bulk day passes, but once received, we can't differentiate if they're coming from a hotel or just a courtesy pass that they won at a tournament or something
Gotcha.
like that.
Okay,
I can speak to the resident program. There are a few communities that have adopted a resident program, and the main catalyst for driving this type of program is to impact the surrounding communities that don't have a fee, that don't pay a fee for service to that municipality. So for example, if we were to implement a resident program, it would be to penalize the regional district residents because they don't contribute a fee to service for the Revelstoke Aquatic Center. It's not to capture additional revenue from tourists visiting your community. That's not the main intent of the program. If you speak to these other communities like Vernon, Roslyn, Whistler, it's all about, they've done this because the surrounding municipalities have not contributed to the cost of operating that facility. And what they're finding from an administrative point, it's very difficult to administer at the front counter. It's very confrontational. It increases your staffing levels. And in the end, it is a very negative feeling for the person on the other end of the counter, right? It's not pleasant for tourists. It's not pleasant for residents. You have to check for ID. They have to bring proof of residency. And it just causes a lot of chaos at the front desk. I think the concept that you may be envisioning makes sense, but that's not the driver for this type of program.
follow up, Councilor.
Yeah, I might be looking at it through a different lens. I don't look at it as a negative experience. I look at it as kind of an opportunity to engage with the guests that are visiting. And I mean, should you have a local a driver's license or ID with a local address, then you get a rate that is proportionate to being here. And then when we're able to then better collect the data as to who's using the aquatic center, and is this now becoming more of a tourism facing infrastructure, and then in the future, if we were to advocate more funds for it, we could look at it as such. But right now, it's almost being entirely placed on the tax residents to fund this recreation center, and it's a fabulous center. I think it's a great resource that we have, but it's just how can we better support it moving forward? And can we diversify future funding to include taxation from visitors? So that's kind of the lens that I'm viewing this as.
So I hear where you're coming from, Councillor, but I think Mr. Nato has nailed it. Being in a choir center, when people are coming in, they're coming in with just interacting, seeing staff interact with the people. Some are coming in just for a shower, some are coming for a swim, whatever the case may be. It's always a positive interaction, and I would hate to see that diminish that interaction just because we're trying to get some data, but also $1 or $2 more because you're a tourist. I think, if I went to a place and it goes like, well, it costs you going to be $2 or $5 more because you're a tourist, I'm going like, I don't need to be coming back. As minimal as it is, it's about the headspace, about that sort of thing. So, that's kind of how I'm feeling. Any comments from anyone else around the table? Councilor Lucille.
Thank you, Crystals. Since we're still talking about Parks and Rec, I have voiced this before about going down to the equipment rentals kind of points 1 through 11. I'm not totally in support of the 5% increase on that. I understand that that's probably going to get moved forward. I think it would be nice in future to see these have a coded option like we have for the use of rooms. So for profit would be paying this price where a nonprofit running something out of the space would still be paying fees to use this equipment, but at a lesser cost. And then I had another question when it comes to business licenses, why there was no increases to the bed and breakfast and short-term rental business licenses.
So Ms. Moore.
Through the chair, I'm not sure exactly who's online. However, I do know that
Mr. Gips is there.
he is, okay.
Oh, Mr. Simon as well. Mr. Simon, do you want to weigh in?
Through your worship to Councillor Lucia, with respect to the business license fees for STR and B&B, we are already at cost recovery on those. And if we increase them currently, we fear that we will be going beyond cost recovery.
Okay, thank you for that.
Councillor
Palmer. Thank you, Mayor Souls. In general, so I think we talked about this at the Finance Committee, certainly it's sort of general thing. So this is, we were recognizing that we were probably undercharging in general, and there was some moving up to a threshold. So this is sort of a global item. There was some discussion about some review process, and I can't remember what that, outside of this process, what does that review process look like? Is it through Finance Committee or is it something else? And I can't remember if there was any.
I think we talked about it in Finance Committee that we would have a look at some point.
So it's looking at these global, and it's not that all these issues are important and I think need to be addressed. But this would not be the best thing for that.
I agree. And so if you're okay, we leave it with staff to move this forward, council, to have a look and to see if there's room that it can come back this more at some point or not.
Through the chair, at this point, staff would review. We'd take into account, I think there's only one motion today.
Yeah.
We'd update that for sure. Staff would review based off of your feedback, and then we would come back with the first 3 readings of the bylaw, where most of them would receive the 5% increase based off of the council motion.
Sure. All right. With that, so Mr. Nato, I just one question under pool merchandise, swim diapers, depends. Anyway. All right, there's nothing further that we need. Is that correct, Ms. Moore?
That's correct.
Any other comments from council? If there is nothing else, I will call for termination of the meeting. Moved by Councillor Stapleton, Councillor Devlin, All in favor? Motion's carried. We're done for the day. Thank you for joining us, Councilor Jerry. Appreciate it.